What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the world according to Briggs. My name is Briggs, and I want to be the wind beneath your wings. Really, I do. Anyway, recently I received an email from a gentleman that let me know that he was unsubscribing because of a word I used. Right away, I'm thinking, what word did I use? Did some sort of slur drop out about someone or some people or something like that? Was I using the F word too much? What was it that drove this man to the edge to make him unsubscribe? That word was depression. Apparently, this is a big deal with him. I mean, it's just a word. I understand some people have depression and it's kind of depressing, right? But this guy took time out of his day to email me to tell me how upset he was that I used this word, and I look back. He said I continued to use it, but I look back and I use the word depressing and depression, one each. So no. Anyway, so after going back and forth, find out what word he was talking about, because he wouldn't mention it. He wouldn't tell me which one it was. He called it the D word. I finally got back to him and we went back and forth, like I said, and I thanked him for his input and, wished him a better life. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, of all the things I say on this channel, that's what pushed this guy over the edge to say enough with Briggs? I don't know. Who knows? But here's the email. I'd like to say that I used to enjoy your videos until I saw weirdest things about New York. You kept using the D word, synonymous with gloomy, melancholic. Frankly, I hate that word with a burning passion because it's overused and toxic. That word is so poisonous that it taints whatever stuff people like. Your frequency to use that word in your New York City video pissed me off enough that I unsubscribed, and I think you should be ashamed of yourself for using that word and instead use a less offensive word. Okay, so here's the deal. Sorry, but why do people always tell each other they're ashamed of them? I don't know. I don't get it. Anyway, today we're going to be looking at a depressing subject, poverty, and the states that have the most of it. When it comes to poverty, there can be 1,000,001 reasons why someone ends up living in poverty. It's not just 100% the individual's fault all the time. I know a guy that lived in his car for 2 years because his divorce cost him so much he couldn't afford rent or a new house or anything. So he ended up living in his car that had a bumper sticker that said, "Frodo and Sam failed. My ex-wife's attorney has the ring." People with such high student loan payments, they live in their car or van. There's actually several YouTubers, and I've talked about this before, that are making videos about van life. Some people have mental issues. They end up, living in poverty on the streets, chemical dependencies, medical debt. The list goes on and on. When you look at a state that leads the country in poverty and has for, let's say, 40 or 50 years, you have to start putting some of the blame on politicians. After all, politicians are the ones that are making the policies and making the decisions that kind of affect their constituents' lives. And a lot of times, a lot of people get left behind. They're deciding if they're getting employers in, they're deciding if they're putting more money towards schools. Things like that affect poverty in big ways. And that's what today we're going to take a look at. So why don't you sit on back and watch my top 10 poorest states. Number 10, Arizona. Most people wouldn't expect this one, especially when you see that they aren't terrible in the average household income per year. It's $57,000. That's not bad. Arizona has a lot going for it, and it's been trending better over the last few years. In 2017, their household income actually went up $1,800 a year on average, which is far better than the U.S. average, which was only $1,500 a year. So that's solid movement for Arizona. By the time they have all the 2019 stats totaled, they'll probably be well off this list. But Arizona in 2018 had a poverty rate of 14.9%. Almost 15% of their residents are living in poverty. Now, if they could just grow some trees to make a little shade for all those Californians moving to the Grand Canyon state, that'd be great. You know how you could tell a Californian in Arizona? They're the ones that have third-degree burns on their hands and the back of their legs from jumping into a car in a hurry that wasn't parked in the shade. If you've never been to Arizona and you don't know about that, that is a real thing. Leather seats are not your friend in this situation. Or those pleather ones, whichever ones you got. Now, I've done that before. I let out the most embarrassing scream, squeal type thing. I sounded like a 12-year-old girl that was about to get a hug from Justin Bieber back in the day before he turned into a freak. Number 9, Tennessee. At number 9, we have the volunteer state, Tennessee. Tennessee is big in blue-collar industries, manufacturing, warehousing, and transportation. Not a lot of tech in Tennessee yet. This means a lot of people are making minimum or in the neighborhood of minimum wage. That's never a good thing. The average household income here is about $51,000, and in 2018, 15% of the population was living in poverty. They need to get back to making moonshine, I was told by an older gentleman once. He grew up outside of a place called Alpine, Tennessee. I remember it because I thought Alpine was such a strange name for a place in Tennessee. Anyway, he said when he was younger, some guy would put jars of shine in little holes by fence posts. If you took the jar, you left him $5. It was an honor system type thing. He didn't think anyone would ever stiff him. He said it was a different time. People didn't do things like that. But he'd put him on different fence posts around the town on the roads and stuff like that. And people kind of knew where they were, I guess, and go by. If there's a jar of shine there, they leave $5 and off they go. Thought it was interesting. Number 8, South Carolina. South Carolina made the list, and I promise you I will hear about it. It doesn't matter to them that I got the numbers from the Department of Health and Human Services. They will think it's wrong. I did a video about Columbia, South Carolina a few weeks ago, and these people think fake news is still a thing you say when you just don't like the facts. I get the feeling that people in South Carolina, when they've made up their mind about something, they can't be swayed by logic, video evidence, expert testimony, clay tablets brought down from a mountain, nothing. South Carolina's median household income is about $50,000 a year, nearly $10,000 less a year than the U.S. median household income. In addition to generally having a lower income, South Carolina also has a relatively high share of households living in extreme poverty. Among South Carolina households, 8.1% report less than $10,000 a year. That's how much the house makes. Less than $10,000 a year. 15.4% of South Carolina lives in poverty. Number 7, Oklahoma. Property is always a good indicator on the strength of an area's economy. If you see high home prices or values, it means the people are making money and can afford better things than a double wide overlooking the landfill. Home prices in Oklahoma are among the lowest in the nation. The typical home in the state of Oklahoma is valued at about $137,000. That's more than $80,000 below the U.S. average. Income has remained relatively stagnant in Oklahoma in the past years. The median household income in the Sooner State is right at about $50,000 a year, and 15.9% of the residents are currently living in poverty. The great thing about Oklahoma, which you can't take away from, they could have all the problems in the world, they're all your friend. You'll feel like that when you meet the locals. Some of the friendliest people in the country are in Oklahoma. And stop typing. If you're about to say they aren't and you had a really bad time living in Oklahoma and they're not friendly, it's probably you. Number 6, Alabama. There are signs that finances are improving for Alabama residents, but not that much. From 2013 to 2018, the state's median household income only increased by about $2,800. If you remember, Arizona jumped $1,800 in 1 year, while the nation jumped $1,500 in that same year, 2017. Despite low levels of unemployment, Alabama's median household income is still one of the lowest in the country. This is a result, at least partially, to the fact that many of the workers in the state are employed in low-paying industries. Some 15% of Alabama workers work in the manufacturing industry, which, like we talked about before, typically doesn't pay well. The state also has one of the lowest shares of workers, 1.4%, employed in the higher-paying tech industries. The poverty rate in Alabama is 17%, so if you move here, look forward to a malnourished paycheck. It's bad enough you're living in Alabama, then you get paid peanuts. Why stay? Number 5, Kentucky. Kentucky's median household income is only about $47,000 a year, which is the 6th worst in the country. A lot of the income and poverty issues in Kentucky are a direct result of a poorly educated workforce. Just 86% of Kentucky adults graduate high school, and only about 23% gone on to at least get a bachelor's degree, both among the lowest rates in the country. Better education can open up tons of doors and opportunities for the people of Kentucky, but they just don't. They leave it the way it is. Most people in Kentucky that can afford it send their kids to a private school. And that's a strange little fact about the Bluegrass State. They have some of the worst public education, but some of the best private schools. You know, it's weird. Gotta get what you pay for, I guess. 17.4% of Kentucky residents live in poverty. Most people not from this part of the country would never have guessed this. They see the Kentucky Derby and they think it's filled with rich Southerners that wear big hats and drink and watch horses. No, if you get too far outside the cities, it turns into the set of Deliverance really quick. Number 4, West Virginia. At number 4, we have a state that I've really grown to love over the last couple of years. If you ever visit the Mountain State, I would honestly tell you to stay near the cities like Charleston or Morgantown, or even the nicer, smaller towns like Harpers Ferry. West Virginia has seen some hard times. This state was all in on coal for over 100 years. In the last decade or two, the coal industry has seen dwindling markets. Not as much demand these days for coal. This hit West Virginia hard. They got the 1-2 punch bad. The second punch was being ground zero for the opioid crisis. This wrecked a lot of families in West Virginia. The good news is they've done really, really well when it comes to the opioid thing. They were the worst, and when I say the worst, they were blowing everyone out of the water for, back around 2014, 15, 16. Nowadays, they're like 5th or 6th worst. So that doesn't sound like much, but when you take into consideration how far back they were, they've come a long way. West Virginia has a tough battle ahead of them. If you know the type of people they are, if you've ever known anyone from West Virginia, you'll have faith that they'll turn it around. Here's the numbers for you. The median household income in West Virginia is only $43,000 a year, and 19.1% of the residents live in poverty. Some of them even have bats living in their apartment building. Number 3, New Mexico. If you didn't know New Mexico was going to be on this list, congratulations for not following the news. Really, I plan on just avoiding it myself entirely soon. I'm just going to watch ESPN and the Weather Channel and call it good. I figure those ones will be safe. New Mexico's median household income is about $43,000 a year. That's the 3rd lowest in the United States. The state's unemployment rate is the highest in the nation. A relatively large share of New Mexico's households live on very little income. Some 9.7% of the households in New Mexico report an annual income of less than $10,000 a year. That's a whole household living on less than $10,000 a year. It isn't just the poverty in New Mexico either. They have so many problems, I don't even have time or the energy to talk about all of them right now. They even lost my favorite news reporter, Allison Martinez. She jumped ship. I follow her on social media and looks like she's avoiding subpoenas or something. She's like traveling everywhere, and every 3 days she's in a new location. That's like someone on the run. Totally kidding. She's a nice girl. New Mexico is one of 6 states in the country that didn't see a significant increase in median household income over the past 5 years.
The poverty rate in New Mexico is 19.7%.
That's not good.
Number 2, Louisiana. Louisiana, the show me state, and home to New Orleans, Mardi Gras, and some of the best food in the country. And it's actually not the show me state. That's Missouri. How many of you were already typing? Come on, admit it. You know you geography nerds thought today was your day. Well, the good news is, it is your day. All of them are. Enjoy them. Louisiana carries a few nicknames. The Bayou State, the Creole State, the Sportsman's Paradise, the Boot. The official nickname is actually the Pelican State. Louisiana is tied with New Mexico for the 2nd highest poverty rate in the country at 19.7%. The state also has the 2nd highest share of households that live in extreme poverty. Some 10%, well actually some 10.3% of the households earn less than $10,000 annually. And that's compared to 6.5% for the rest of the United States. That's the average of the rest of the United States. Only 6%, 6.5%. Louisiana has one of the highest state unemployment rates currently at 5.1%. If you visit the Bayou State, it's hard not to love it. They have some really rough parts, but in general, the people are good and the atmosphere is amazing. They're just a little too dirt poor for such a great state. And number 1, Mississippi. Most of you, I'm sure, saw this one coming. If you've ever driven through Mississippi, you know this place is a little short in the income department. If you ever want to drive through the state, make sure you have good auto insurance, because the hospitality state's residents aren't big on having auto insurance. 24.3% of the people are driving the old town roads without ever calling Geico, State Farm, or Allstate. My biological father and brothers all lived here. Well, some of them are in South Carolina now, but I still have family in chunky Mississippi. Haven't seen them in years, but still, I know this place. Nearly 1 out of every 5 people in Mississippi live in poverty. At 19.8%, no other state has a higher poverty rate. And that's right, like I said, 1 out of every 5 residents lives in poverty in the Magnolia State. This is nothing new. This state has been in bad shape since Lincoln was the president. Mississippi workers are also some of the least likely to be employed in higher paying information and, let's say, finance industries. They just don't have tech. It's just like blue collar jobs here for the most part. The state is a perfect example of mismanagement at the state level. But what do you expect from a state where people get excited by one of those bug zappers for the porch? Tell you the truth, that's some fun, unlike, having a drink and watching bugs get zapped. I gotta admit, it's a little sick and twisted, but it's a good time. I've actually been on a porch in Mississippi where people cheer when a big one gets burnt. It's great. I don't know why. It's amazing.
All right, so that's my top 10 poorest states in the United States. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got some information out of it. You know, a lot of these states, they've been in bad shape forever. This is nothing new to any of these. Anyway, don't forget all the links below. Leave me a comment. Tell me what you thought. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other. We're all in this together. What is going on, everyone? Thanks for watching the video. In case you're watching this before the end of August 2019, I won't be doing any live streams for a couple weeks. I'll be in Alaska, the Kenai Peninsula, so that's like 2 weeks. Then I got some other trips planned, so travel will stop the live streams. I'll see you early September, I'm sure, but I got plenty of videos all scheduled to be launched on their normal time, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, sometimes Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, but you know the thing. Anyway, thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for watching. Everybody have a great day. Be nice to each other.